When everybody says the same thing, it's very easy to believe a report, a rumor, whether it be transfer or in relation to the transfer budget, etc., etc. But in the case of Lucas Paqueta potentially returning to Brazil, we have contrasting reports and claims from various people that are usually reliable when it comes to football / West Ham news. So myself and Gonzo are going to tell you exactly who's saying what. We're going to discuss it and what we make of what we think is the truth. Bit of a tongue twister. Hopefully you follow me, but it'll make sense as we go along. Follow me on this one. So all begun last night. Fabrizio Romano doing the tweet which highlighted various other tweets, but he stated Flamengo have approached West Ham to sign Lucas Paqueta on loan. Negotiations are ongoing on club's side. Players camp also been informed of Flamengo's desire to sign Paqueta, as per Casagrande reported. Flamengo plan to insist on this deal in the next few days. Casagrande had said previously, Flamengo is negotiating the loan signing of Lucas Paqueta from West Ham. Talks are ongoing and with the approval of the Select midfielder and his agents. And expectations are very high for Flamengo to get the player to arrive. Negotiation information first published by Geo Gonzo, who are a Brazilian media outlet, and confirmed. Then he goes on to promote his YouTube channel where he was doing the story. Now, this was followed up with Sean Whetstone, who said last night, not convinced about reports from Brazil that Flamengo are in talks with West Ham over a loan deal for Lucas Paqueta. One source has already laughed at reports, calling it the funniest story ever, but we'll look to verify with a club source tomorrow morning that it is not true. So the initial source was a football agent that was involved in bringing Lucas Paqueta to West Ham. Sean followed it up this morning by saying reports that Flamengo are in negotiations with West Ham over a loan for Lucas Paqueta are not true, a senior source has revealed this morning. The source did confirm Flamengo did approach West Ham months ago with a loan offer for the Brazilian, but it was rejected and there were no talks. Now, Fabrizio Romano has followed up today with Flamengo board delegation in England to hold talks with West Ham about Lucas Paqueta. Flamengo are trying for the loan move, but expect it to be difficult. Permanent transfer more likely. Clubs in contact. Negotiations to follow with the players' camp also informed. Now, of course, that leaves one person to get an update from, and that's ex-West Ham employee. He did an update over on the West Ham Way Patreon this morning, which said that he'd heard the same thing, that an agent involved in bringing Paqueta to the club said it was the funniest thing he has ever heard. And he was suggesting that it was old news, saying that the chairman confirmed this is no longer the case and the story is 6 months old. Flamengo did make a loan approach 6 months ago to allow Paqueta to be taken out of the limelight in England. But X has done a couple of updates since. The first one saying that if Flamengo were prepared to sign him permanently, the club may be tempted due to the uncertainty over his playing future. And X has gone on to say it appears Flamengo are going to try and buy the player now. They're trying to raise funds from sponsors to buy Lucas Paqueta. It could appeal to West Ham so they can cut their losses in fear the player is going to be found guilty. So that's all the updates. There's a lot to be taken. I appreciate that. But this is a fast-moving story. Gonzo, you're sat there listening to me rattle off tweets and reports from journalists and in the nose. What's your take on this, and what are you inclined to believe at this point?
Well, I know the stuff that Sean knows. I've had contact with the club myself. Crikey, it was so early this morning. It felt like late last night, quite frankly. So yeah, I mean, all of that stuff that Sean said is that. Well, is it true? Who knows? But I can't see that the club would have any inclination to lie on this. It was very much exactly. Well, yeah, it's old news. It's that they approached us for a loan last season. That was it. That is the extent of the message that came back to me. It was exactly the same message that came back to Sean. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't want to overly sort of. That's just it, really. And I can't see anything more than that. I cannot see for a moment how Flamengo can afford to buy Lucas Paqueta. There's just not the money in the Brazilian game. So I don't cover myself and say something else, but I'm just telling you what I've heard. You know, I don't believe for a moment there's people, whatever Romano said, that there's people here about to sanction a move over to Brazil. I don't believe it for a second. And I'm particularly disgusted by it. I think it might be quite a smart move for the club to do, by the way. But I mean, all you can do is deal with the evidence that's presented to you. I've seen a direct message today from the club saying this is not true. I also know, let's be fair, I read between the lines. The agent involved was, of course, the agent. I don't want to mention any names because you don't want to annoy people. You don't want to piss people off, and you don't want to not be able to get exclusive stuff in the future. But the agent that brought Lucas Paqueta to West Ham said this is hilarious. And I know that to be the case as well. And then what you've got to do is, once you've got that information, start factoring it in with other stuff that you know. Well, not that you know, that you've heard. So Tim Steiton said the other day on camera, oh, and we're really looking forward to Lucas being back next season. I popped over and saw him when he was in Brazil. When I was over in Brazil doing scouting, basically went to his family home. Steiton did. Lopetegui's been in regular contact with him. So even if you just took that, these are the words of the director of football and the new head coach are planning for Paqueta to be here next season, make him more part of the West Ham family. I think those possibly were even the words that Lopetegui made. So I think
he said that he's got family in Brazil, but he's got family here.
Yeah. So look, all I can say, I've seen messages from the club myself saying this is an old story. A first-hand message from the agent involved saying this is hilarious, never heard anything like it. Other people who were quite close to it saying, well, they couldn't afford it. Then you got not the manager, the head coach and the director of football, who are basically, everything they say seems to appear that they're quite excited about Paqueta playing for West Ham next season. That's what I believe. But I wouldn't. It would make sort of prudent sense. There is still a risk that he gets banned. Although what X did tweet out yesterday, I think it was a tweet, he put it on his Patreon. This was really, it felt really good news when he said it, which was that the club are confident, are really, really confident. Increasingly confident, not really confident. I don't want to misquote him. Increasingly confident that Paqueta will be acquitted of the charges. So everything and that's really good. So if West Ham are confident of him being acquitted of the charges, they're not going to sell him to Flamengo on the cheap. I'm not even sure, looking at the state, and this is obviously, probably the subject with somebody else like Kieran Maguire, but I'd certainly not under the misconception that they could even begin to afford his wages or anything like that. Certainly never mind giving us... Look, I think it's fair to say that West Ham probably at the moment, if cost 50 million, all right? Yeah. It was 35 million plus if West Ham qualified for Europe and won a trophy. Well, we did. Okay. So it's probably fair to say that we'll end up paying a 50 million. We thought we were going to get 85 million pound for him. The FA charges for betting mean that we're probably not going to get that. So would we cut our losses? We risk losing him for nothing at the moment, all right? But the club are confident, so you don't know. But let's say the club aren't confident and we still don't know. Would you take 30 million pound for Lucas Paqueta at this point? You probably would, as a club. Think, well, at least we get some money back and we don't pay his wages. They wouldn't get him. I don't even think a Brazilian club would pay 20 million pound for him. I'm not even sure they could pay 10 or 15. I really, really don't. So I'm really struggling with any of this, Geo. But and also, I hope it's not right. I don't want to lose Lucas Paqueta. I think it could be brilliant next season. And they got me excited. Lopetegui got me excited by him talking about it. I thought, wow, we're all wondering where this midfielder might come from. It's quite clear Lucas Paqueta is not going to be one of the two either sides of the striker in his system. He's played number 8 the other day for Brazil. I'm seeing him in central midfield for West Ham. And by the way, Lopetegui's been speaking about it. I'm excited about it.
And there is a line from X's update. I didn't want to read it all out because it's obviously on Patreon and stuff. But there is a line, just to add context to what Gonzo's saying here. He said, whilst West Ham playing staff are relatively confident he could play for the club again, the chairman is not as optimistic about Paqueta's final outcome. But then he's always on the side of caution.
Yeah.
So, Jacob Steinberg did a tweet as well. I should include that. He said West Ham turned down a loan from Flamengo for Lucas Paqueta last month. Message out to the club is that Paqueta will be playing for Lopetegui next season. So there's a lot of contrasting. Yeah.
Can I just say Steinberg would have spoken to the club today? I
know, but he's got a couple of things wrong recently. I do think he's missed a couple of transfer rumours. I don't know what one it was. Maybe it might have been the Guilherme one. I think he was saying the Guilherme one's not happening. It happened. But he got something big wrong. He obviously has contacts at the club. I do think he's missed on a couple, like everybody does when it comes to getting this news and stuff. And I think a large part of it depends on who you speak to, because Sullivan might say one thing, but for those that speak to Tim Steiden, they might be saying something different to what David Sullivan's saying, and so on and so forth, like that.
Sure.
Fabrizio Romano's getting this information from somewhere. But the one thing, I think, when this came out last night, I didn't really know what to make of it, because I thought it could be believable, and not in the sense that we'd consider it, but Flamengo would try and get him on loan. I think, well, why wouldn't they? That would make sense. You're not having a good time over in England. Come over to Brazil, come back to your home, and get away from all that stuff over in England. But Veni Casagrande was one of the people that verified the story. He, in terms of the West Ham side of things, he was all over the Guilherme news, and he was very accurate with it. So I think he's got very credible sources on the Brazilian side of things. And this is where this story's come from. This story hasn't originated from the West Ham side of it. It's come from Brazil, and the West Ham side of it is trying to verify that information, those claims. I think it would make sense for Flamengo to try and get him on loan. Do they think they'll try and buy him? I agree with you. They can't afford him. Their record signing to date is Gabigol. We remember him. We were linked to him quite a lot. 17 million euros, so 50 million pounds roughly is the record signing. I would suggest maybe Lucas Paqueta would be almost like their version of signing a Galactico. If they could get him, that would be a wow. Look at it. We've just got Lucas Paqueta. And Flamengo are a huge club in Brazil. They're absolutely massive. So it's not like he's going to a small club. It's a huge club, just a different continent altogether. Now, obviously, in regards to Lucas Paqueta, and this is where West Ham would have a difficult decision to make if tempting offers to arrive on the table. Is, like you said, do we cut our losses and run? Do we gamble that Lucas Paqueta is not going to get done for gambling? But the way it stands at the minute is obviously Paqueta has these charges. The hearing is, we don't know when. A date has not been set. If he's found guilty, originally he will only be banned from England. Now, the stories are and reports are that the FA will, if they find him guilty, they will push FIFA to ban him worldwide so that he can't go somewhere else and play. But there is a possibility that he could be banned in England, but FIFA say, no, that's not enough for us. We're not carrying that ban on. That ban is only applicable to England. Then that would make things interesting. But the reality is, at the minute, we just don't know. We don't know if he's going to be found guilty. And if he is, we don't know if FIFA are going to carry it forward, or they're just going to say, no, that's it. That's an end to it. We're not getting involved in this. We don't think there's enough evidence. You do. That's up to you. It's your FA, your game, but we're not going to make it a worldwide ban or anything. Obviously, Brazil are under the FIFA jurisdiction as well. So any ban from FIFA would apply to the Brazilian league.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is that the Brazilian league runs until December. So they're currently through their season at the minute, halfway through their season. I think it started in April. It runs until December. He's also at Copa America. Then he will be entitled to a form of break from football. So by the time he's back, it'd only be like 3 or 4 months left of the Brazilian fixture league anyway. This one, originally I thought discard it's not happening. But because the sources over the Brazil side are quite credible, I think there's talk that Paqueta might be more inclined to fight the charges with the Brazilian FA behind him, basically saying that I've got the Brazilian FA on my team now, and English FA, let's go. So I think, I don't know, I'm struggling to what to make of this. The reason I'm a bit like yourself, or I'm assuming this is the vibe I'm getting from you, is I'm inclined to not believe it in the sense that they just can't afford him. Plus his wages, he's on over 100 grand a week at West Ham, probably. They can't afford that. They won't be able to afford it. So it feels like a bit of a non-starter, just purely from a financial aspect. The loan move is just completely pointless from West Ham, as far as I'm concerned. What's the point on loaning him out? They won't even be able to cover all his wages. They might do, because there's no transfer fee involved. But even if we were to offset Lucas Paqueta's wages, let's say he went to Brazil and they paid all his wages.
Yeah.
Now we need to go replace Lucas Paqueta with no money.
Yeah. I mean, there's
the same situation we're in if he gets found guilty.
It is ridiculous. I also just want to point out that when the club or the agent want to keep something quiet, I know this. They say nothing. You will not get an answer from them. So I don't think they've. I certainly would not. If there was something in the pipeline, they'd say nothing. They wouldn't reply. All right. The fact that they're both, one of them's laughing and the other one's saying, it's pretty old
I
news.
dispute the agent one, right? I'll tell you why. I know he was involved in Paqueta coming to West Ham. I believe that. That's fine. I'm not disputing that. But if Flamengo or any other club wanted Paqueta, I don't think he needs to be informed.
He doesn't, but he's also been used a lot in recent deals in Brazil as well. So I think I think he doesn't need to be informed. But what I think he does know is he knows the state of West Ham. He knows the state of the Brazilian market because he got the Guilherme deal over the line as well. And I think if it's it's put to him, Flamengo are going to sign Paqueta, and he laughs. I think you've got a bit of an indication. The other thing I think is I'm not even sure about this delegation thing. I hope they haven't, because it would certainly be news to the club at the moment. And anyone can want to go and buy something, and even if it's not for sale, I'd certainly not advise sending a delegation over before you've had any encouragement. So I'm not sure about that at all. I think they might be testing the water on this. Who knows? It's just when you put everything together, the little bit that the bit that you've been told, and then the stuff that's coming out from people like Stuyton and Lopetegui, that's all you can do, because everyone else, I don't know this geezer in Brazil. I know who he is. I don't know. I've no doubt that Romano has been told, by the way, by Fluminense. I'm sure they want him. I'm sure they would want him. But even Lucas Paqueta, there'll be people probably saying, well, maybe you'd go there to take a pay cut. I'm not so sure. Listen, don't be wrong. I'm sure he'd go there if he was on 100 grand a week at West Ham. Would he go and take 90 grand a week in Brazil? Yeah, I'm sure he would. But he's not going to go to Brazil and start taking 30, 40 grand a week.
If he was banned in England, but FIFA didn't carry it forward, then yes, he might go back to Brazil.
For sure.
Of course, you'll want to leave West Ham then. You don't want to go play football. I can't play here. I need to go somewhere. So then maybe, but we're not at that point yet. However, that's the one piece of information that we're missing here. What does Lucas Paqueta want? What does he want? I've got no doubts he'll be asked about it, and whenever someone can get a hold of him at Copa America, and I've got no doubts this will be put to him, because this will be big news back in Brazil. And I'd imagine the Brazilian journalists are probably wanting him back in Brazil. Why would they not want to see like the Brazilian player in the Brazilian league? So it'll get put to him. It'd be interesting to see what his response is, because for all we know, maybe he wants to go back to Brazil. Maybe we've been told reports about how, I don't want to put words into the thing. Basically, he was not depressed, but he was really struggling with it. His confidence was really low.
Yeah.
So if he's decided, I don't want to get out of England, I completely understand. If he's innocent, which he says he is, and he is innocent, and he's got all this coming at him, I would completely understand why he said, I've had enough of this. I just want out of this country. It's got nothing to do with West Ham. They've done nothing wrong. All they've done is support me. I ain't playing for the English FA when they're coming at me and I've done nothing wrong. They've got no evidence. They're still charging me. I need out of this country. I would completely understand that. So it'd be interesting to see, if we can, what Lucas Paqueta wants to happen. Maybe he wants to go back to Brazil and have that sort of comfort blanket around him, because the Brazil FA were, I wouldn't say clear, but before Copa America, they spoke to the English FA and basically said, well, from what they've got, there's no reason for him not to play for Brazil.
They stuck by him. They did.
Yeah, they basically said, what you've got there is nothing. You can't charge him on that. We're going to continue to play him. I feel like the Brazilian FA have, like you said, stood by the man, and now he's done nothing wrong.
West Ham won't sell him on. When I say won't sell him on the cheap, I'm not saying West Ham will hold out for 80 million, but West Ham are not going to let him go on loan and cover half his wages or anything like that. And I'll just point everyone back to Manuel Lanzini. Always wanted to go back to Argentina. He spoke about it all the time. But Lanzini's last contract at West Ham was between 80 and 90 grand. He wasn't prepared to take a cut on that. He still waited until it expired before he went back to Argentina. So, yes, I mean, Lucas Paqueta can want to go back there if he wants to, but he's going to need to take a pay cut to do it. And Flamengo are going to have to come up with money that they have never historically been able to come up with. And if they're going to say they're going to get sponsors to do it, then what sponsors are they going to give them? 20, 30 million to supplement what they might have.
And there's still a lot of risk attached, because he could still get found guilty and FIFA could still ban him as well.
Yes, absolutely. So there's risk for everyone, but I think at the moment there's not enough risk attached to it for West Ham not to be able to hold. West Ham, this offer, funny enough, or the Saudi one, presumably is still on the table if he does get banned in the UK. So actually,
as long as FIFA don't pursue it,
as long as
yes.
so if it's just a FIFA, then West Ham would really be silly to move on this now. Actually, if that's the case, unless it was. Look, here you go. Is 35 million in your bank now? He'll terminate his contract. No loyalty bank. And I think West Ham would think, oh, hold on. That might be worth doing. But this is what we're talking about. I think up to the point of time, up with anything remotely tempting, I think this is a million miles away. I'll be surprised if this story doesn't disappear pretty quickly. I would be surprised if there is any delegation coming from Brazil. If they are, I think they'll be turning around with their tail between their legs, getting back on a flight back to Brazil pretty damn quickly. But you know what? It's going to run and run. And without being funny, with the vacuum of any real transfer story at the moment, this story might run and run for a little bit until we, make another signing or something like that. But yeah, I'm inclined to believe there's interest, but no more than that.
I believe there's interest. I believe the stories that Flamengo want him are true. I'm inclined to believe that. However, and to be fair, nobody's saying it's going to happen. I just can't see it happening. Purely from a financial aspect, the loan just does not make sense to West Ham whatsoever, unless they're going to pay a substantial loan fee, which they won't be able to. I'll be surprised they can afford it. The only small thing that might happen is if Tim Steinberg has got his eyes on a handful of players from Flamengo and says, right, okay, let's do a 3-for-1 trade off here or something.
Sure, yeah,
but
good point.
Apart from that, I can't see this having legs whatsoever. However, I do retain an interest in what Lucas Paqueta's got to say about this one. And I think that will be telling, because he can kill this like that and say, no, I'm got no desire. West Ham stuck by me. I'm sticking by West Ham. I'm staying at West Ham. But at the same time, he could throw fuel on it, which is it's in the hands of my agents or something like that. And suddenly, whoa, okay, this is now.
Yeah.
And I would understand if he wants to leave England, not West Ham. Anyway, anything you'd like to add before we disappear?
No. Interesting story, though. Interesting story.
Big story. Perhaps maybe a bit of substance to it. Maybe there's nothing to it, but get involved in the comments below. Anyway, we'd like to hear your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Chat with Steinberg and Gonzo. Catch you in a bit.